I'm going to recognize myself first, and we'll start here with Mr. Downing. And I do appreciate you being here. I really do. These are tough, difficult questions. I still struggle with how the Department of Justice considers geolocation. Is it metadata or is it content? Because the district court ruled that it said that it's content. How does the Department of Justice view this information?
Thanks very much for the question. That's, I think, the interesting and tricky thing about this label that we've placed on it as geolocation data, because it can come in very many different forms. At times, I would say that it is metadata. That is, it is not the content of a communication, but simply information about the location of where a phone is. But if you think broadly about the way that location information can be stored, if I send an email to my mom and say, I'm at the office, well, that's actually location information, and it's in that form, the content. That might also be true, for example, if I were to post a photograph on Facebook that contains information, that might be part of that photograph and therefore content.
But you do, does the Department of Justice believe that if it knew I was at the hospital, at the oncology department, isn't that the content of my life? And then I move from there to somewhere else. Why is that not content? You think that that's simply the metadata?
So the general construct is the content of the communication versus information about a communication. That's the general way that we look at these kinds of questions. If I were to place a call using my landline phone, the number that I dialed would widely be considered metadata. But the fact that I'm calling Home Depot gives an idea about what I might be talking about. But it's still metadata, even though it can be used to infer certain things.
And this is where I think I beg to differ. I think geolocation certainly used for more than just a split-second snapshot in time. Even if it was, you can tell a lot about what they're doing. If I called from the local jail, that's going to provide a lot more information than just the fact that I called Bob. Is there anything that Ms. Giuliani or Mr. Larkin or Mr. Doucette said, Mr. Downing, that you disagree with or you found in their testimonies?
One thing that I think is important to understand is that we often hear discussion about whether something was obtained without a warrant. And of course, that is true, that is the department's position. But it brushes over the idea that when we use a court order under Section 2703 of ECPA, that there are substantial privacy protections built into that it's not that law enforcement is waltzing in and just obtaining it at a whim, but in fact a series of process which requires specific facts to present it to the judge before we can obtain that information. That's one response I would have that I would offer.
Is the IRS doing that?
I don't oversee the IRS, but I do believe that they would be, yes, because...
Why do you believe that?
Because the carriers know what sort of process to expect.
So it's up to AT&T to police the IRS? I mean, you've jumped to a conclusion and an assumption that the IRS is living up to the standard of the Department of Justice. I want to know why you think that is.
Well, I think all law enforcement agents and prosecutors,
but is the IRS...
follow the law, and the law is that at a minimum you need to obtain this kind of court order to obtain records or other information pertaining to a customer or subscriber. That's the law. Ms.
Giuliani, is that the way you see that?
No, we disagree with the Department of Justice. The standard that is under a 2703D is not a probable cause standard, and we believe that doesn't reflect the intimate nature of location information. It doesn't reflect how Americans view this information. Under polling, 80% of Americans view their location information over time as sensitive. That's a greater percentage than view their relationship history or their religion as sensitive. And the Department of Justice position also doesn't comport with what courts have said about the sensitivity of this information. Courts have recognized that location information over time can tell you whether someone is a regular churchgoer, is an unfaithful husband, is a heavy drinker. And given the intimate nature of this information, we believe that a probable cause standard is the correct standard, as many courts have found.
So the FBI director testified that they do use probable cause, but what about all the rest of the Department of Justice? Do they or do they not, under the description Ms. Giuliani cited there?
I think I would go back to the general overarching point here, which is there are many kinds of location information. We certainly do use warrants for cell site information when it's collected by the cell site simulator. We also use warrants when we are collecting precise GPS location from the providers. The difference is, and the courts have supported us in this, when we are obtaining less precise information that is a business record of the carrier, cell site information, then that does not require a warrant, although there are many standards that have to be met that are built in for the protection of the privacy of the individual.
My time has expired, but I do wish you would provide that standard to the public and to the Congress. We're different than most every other country on the planet. I get it, but we do value our privacy too. Ms. Giuliani, I'll let you speak, and then we'll go to the ranking member.
Yeah, I just wanted to address a point of this idea that somehow historical cell site information is not as precise as GPS information. And that doesn't reflect the way technology is moving. We're increasingly seeing this information be very precise because it's not just the tower you connect to, it's the direction, it's the distance. Even in cases people have microcells, so a tower that only serves their home. And given this, the precision of cell site information, historical cell site information, is quite accurate, and I think the standards that we've used does not reflect that accuracy.
Thank you. I'll recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings.